The following program is paid for by Absolute Mortgage, a division of Finance of America Mortgage LLC, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS 1071, AZBK 0910184. Tina Mitchell, MLO 145420, is a licensed loan originator with Absolute Mortgage. Visit AbsoluteLoans.com or call 888-90-HOMES for cost information. You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, sponsored by Absolute Mortgage, a division of Finance of America Mortgage. Now, in the studio, local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome to The Money Hour at 11:50 a.m. KKNW, the Saturday, December 19th show. I am your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell. I provide the news on everything money, fresh information on market trends and conditions in our local economy. If you're hearing my show at a different time or day, you're listening to a rebroadcast, but I'm here to answer any questions or connect you with the guests that I have in studio today. Please call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. And the lineup for today's show, Jonna Hood, Managing Director of Recruiting and Pre-Licensing with Windermere Real Estate. Also, we have Michael Fanning, Senior VP of Services with Windermere Real Estate, and York Baur, CEO of Moxi Works with Windermere Real Estate. As you can hear, I've got a panel, all experts over at Windermere with Windermere Services, and really excited to have a conversation with all of them today. Great information on today's show, so you'll definitely want to stay tuned. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. And we'll go ahead and start the show, as always, with a little money chat.
Money.
The federal funds rate and mortgage interest rates. How does the Fed funds rate, when they increase, affect mortgage interest rates and other things that affect your money? We're going to talk about that. Yes, on Wednesday, the Feds did increase by 0.25%. So what does that mean for you? I'm just going to break down a few things that this can affect by the increase. Every month, all eyes turn to the Fed to search for any clues in language that's being used to try to determine when the rates will increase, which they have. It finally happened. Your life is likely to be affected in several ways, and I just wanted to share a few ways with you today. So your credit card bills could get more expensive. The vast majority of credit cards in the United States have variable interest rates. Generally, your interest rate is determined by the set rate that comes from your particular cardholder agreement. Now, you may not notice too much of an impact, especially if you carry relatively low credit card balances. However, if you have high credit card debt, say $10,000, and a small rate can be pretty noticeable. In this case, an extra 1% interest means an extra $100 a year. This would mean that out of your monthly payment, about $8,000 more would go towards interest, not paying down your balance. Now, in short term, a rate increase means it will either take you longer to pay off your credit cards by simply making the minimum payment, or your minimum payment amount may increase. Now, some of your investments could be affected as well. The interest rate changes can affect your investments in a variety of ways. For interest, banks with large lending portfolios can see profits rise with interest rates because spreads between the interest banks pay and the interest they charge tend to widen as the interest rates rise. Now, however, some investments can negatively be affected by rising interest rates. This is especially true when fixed income investments like bonds. Now, bond prices fluctuate based on the prevailing market interest rates and the coupon rate of the bond. For an example, let's consider that you buy a 30-year Treasury bond today for $1,000 and your bond has a coupon rate of 2.6%. The bond will pay out $26 per year $26 per year for the next 30 years. Now, however, let's say that rates jump up 0.5% and the standard coupon rate for a 30-year Treasury rises to 3.1%. Because that yield for investors expect, you should have to sell your bonds at a discount in order to make them competitive with the market. Now, in order for your bond, which pays $26 per year, to yield at 3.1%, its value would drop about $840. This is simplified examples, and there's a few other factors that contribute to bond prices, plus the bond shorter maturities will affect less than longer ones. Just be aware on how rising interest rates can affect your fixed income investments. Now, last, of course, mortgage interest rates. This is my arena, what I do full time. Mortgage rates are dictated mostly by market and movements, but the Fed can have a huge influence on rates. Even though the federal funds rate is not tied directly to mortgage rates, it affects them indirectly because it impacts lenders' borrowing costs. So if it is more expensive for banks to borrow, they will pass the expense on to the customers. In the current environment, any changes will be direct, instant and negative impact on mortgage rates. So the Fed also uses monetary stimulus programs such as bond purchases to help keep mortgage rates where they want them. Now, when the bond fed mortgage bonds and U.S. Treasuries, it increases demand for these investments. Such purchases tend to keep mortgage rates down. In the other direction, the Fed can decrease demand by selling bonds, which could send mortgage rates up. So Fed's economic projections also influence mortgage rates as they affect investors' sentiments. A gloomy economic outlook usually means lower mortgage rates. Signs of a stronger economy often result in the higher mortgage rates. So takeaway, there will be some impact on your finances with the Fed's increasing. When it comes to mortgage rates, just watch the bond market. When the bond market's trading higher, that's good for interest rate. The bond market drops and loses in trading price, it'll be bad for interest rates. So it'll be interesting to see. Anticipation is we're not going to see drastic changes with the Fed and the Fed's fund rate, but they will steadily be increasing. So keep a watch out for that. Coming up next in the Money Hour, are you considering a possible career in real estate? What do you need to know? More from Windermere Services panels after this short break right here at 11:50 a.m. KKNW.
Chris, you're not acting like a grown-up in our relationship.
Am too.
There's your comic book collection, the race car bed.
I'm young at heart, but I put money into my 401k every paycheck. I'm taking control over my financial life, and that feels pretty grown-up to me.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1,000,000. For free ideas and easy ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
Are those footy pajamas?
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
This is the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here on 1150 a.m. KKNW, the Saturday, December 19th show, bringing in expert advice and inside knowledge on today's events and how it affects our local economy, ultimately affecting your money. If you're hearing my show at a different time of day, you are listening to a rebroadcast, but you can always call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. And in studio right now, I have Jonna Hood, Managing Director of Recruiting and Pre-Licensing with Windermere Real Estate. Also, Michael Fanning, Senior VP of Services with Windermere Real Estate, and York Baur, CEO of Moxi Works with Windermere Real Estate. So we've got a panel, or have a panel discussion with all of you, and I appreciate you guys are so busy, and I appreciate your time and coming into studio and joining me.
Thank you.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks.
Yeah.
And our first conversation, I'm going to direct a lot of this directly to Jonna because it's her area of expertise, and it's in the opportunity we're going to talk today, Jonna, is about real estate and anybody that's listening and thinking about getting into real estate. So I'm excited for that conversation, but we'll have York and Michael tag in and give their feedback as well. And I want to give a little background about each of them. Jonna Hood, Managing Director of Windermere's Recruiting and Pre-Licensing Division with Windermere Professional Development since 2014 and real estate sales since 2003. She brings 13 years of real estate sales expertise and 8 years of full-cycle recruiting expertise to this organization. Jonna is passionate people person with the knack for assessing talent and aligning qualified candidates with their dream careers. Proven success rates and recognition for superior levels of service in and inherently customer satisfaction experience across multiple industries and large dynamic companies in a variety of competitive markets. Exciting about challenging opportunities for personal growth and development, innately driven to increase performance and production, specifically expertise in advertising, lead generation, and video production. While working as a tech recruiter for Microsoft in 2011, Jonna furthered her specialty in marketing, business negotiation, core tech, and non-core tech recruiting, university talent acquisition, and team leadership. She also holds a degree in business management from the University of Washington. Also, we have Michael Fanning. Michael is going on his 20th year with Windermere Services. That is fantastic.
Thank you.
Michael provides leadership, guidance, and training to owners, managers, and agents. With his strong background in technology and his growing knowledge of business development, he is a key player in the growth of Windermere's expansion. Early on, Michael was one of the 3 individuals who began the Windermere Technology department, now Windermere Solutions. And as an integral piece of Windermere's professional development, it has been said that he can take a very difficult topic and make it seem clear and reliable. Michael's specialties are social media, technology, business planning, Windermere Solutions products, and certified Ninja installation instructor. And I know any realtor that's out there listening to the show today knows about Ninja. So very exciting position. And also on the panel, we have York Baur. And York is CEO of Moxi Works, makers of Moxi Works brokerage, productivity systems, and the award-winning Touch CMA real estate presentation tool. He also serves as CIO for Windermere Real Estate, the 4th largest independent brokerage in the country, and directs their selective and use of technology across consumer agent-backed office tools. Now, having built his career around helping sales teams excel through automation and technology, his passion now is to help real estate brokers create growth. Moxi Works products are in use at the largest brokerage in the country, including Windermere, Long and Foster, and Howard Hanna. York brings 30 years of technology industry experience to the company, including previous roles as Chief Marketing Officer for the TAS Group, where he drove the transformation of the company's from service-based training approach to high margin software as a service model. As Executive Vice President of Business and Corporation Development at Zango, he helped to create the world's largest client-side contextual targeting networking through organic growth and acquisition. While Executive Vice President at General Manager in Info Sales, he grew its search and directory business to be the largest independent internet search network and lead the successful acquisition of Excite.com. Now, he holds a Bachelor's of Science and Computer Science for University of Southern California. So just a little background again of each of them, and excited to have a conversation here regarding real estate as a career, because there's a lot of opportunity coming into the real estate industry right now. So, Jonna, if a listener considers getting into real estate, what are some things that they should be thinking about before considering this type of career transition?
Yeah, when I'm working with candidates, I usually explain that the real estate career is a 3-part conversation. So just like when you're thinking about becoming a doctor, it doesn't start with choosing the hospital, right? Mm-hmm. There's really a deeper conversation that first needs to go into the career itself. What you see on HGTV is not always, it's only a tiny, sometimes unrealistic depiction of what we really do. Uh-huh. So I invite candidates to spend some time thinking about the ins and outs of our role and how that applies to them as individuals. Are they an entrepreneur? Really understanding that this is not just applying for a job, it's really starting your own business. And are you really a good fit for that? And then additionally, it's important to understand, are you financially viable to make this decision? Is it a good time for you and your family to be taking a risk like getting into real estate? Are you prepared for what that entails? And then also just understanding what the current market is like. So is this a good time to be getting into real estate? Obviously, I'm biased. I'm a recruiter, so it's rare that I would tell you that it's not. But still, it's important to understand what's happening both in our local economy as well as our national economy as well. So that's the first conversation. Second, it's figuring out how to get your license, right? Uh-huh. Are you the type of candidate that really needs live instruction training, or would you thrive in an online world? There's lots of different options, so I help candidates figure out what's the best fit for their learning environment. And then finally, and probably the most important piece, is choosing a brand to align with and understanding what that means as you launch your new career.
Guys, any tag on that as far as getting into the industry?
Well, I always say one, and it's not as scientific as Jonna says, but I have people say, I love looking at homes. That's probably not the answer you want to have if you're going to be a real estate agent. What about building relationships? If you love to build relationships and you really know how to be relevant to people and you like looking at homes, then that's a good starting point, in my opinion.
And I get a lot of candidates that will say, well, I'm not sure if I'm good at sales. And that's a great opportunity to explain that that's not the entirety of our role. And I think within the industry, we're trying to get our agents to understand and the consumers to understand that the real value that we provide is in counseling. So it's not a transactional process, that we're coaches.
Yes.
We're partnering with them through a really big process and trying to be not just market leaders and transaction leaders, but thought leaders, right? So how can we partner with them through a really important process?
Exactly.
Makes a great sense. So obviously there's a lot of fallout around many in the real estate community and actually makes in the real estate industry. So why is it that, what are some factors that you can share to avoid getting out of the industry and not being able to be successful in your new career?
Yeah, and fallout or attrition is something that's common in our industry. And whether it's a good market or a bad market, it's always there. And I, as a recruiter, was trained to use the rule of thirds. So for numbers' sake, say we hire 9 candidates. In a year, 3 of those, a third will not be here. And it's not because they're not great people.
Yes.
It just means the career might not be the right fit for them at this point in their life. And so when I'm working with a classroom of students, I explain that and we try and dig deeper into what the reasons are. And then the next third, right, will usually end up being some level of moderate or medium level income, right? And then the last third will end up being high producing, successful real estate agents. And so the way that you can figure out or prep yourself to position in the right category is thinking about again, financial viability. That's one of our biggest barriers to making it in real estate. It can take a year or two to really ramp up and build that consistent level of business. So are you prepared to make that transition? And then also having the discipline to be a business owner. So yes. I don't think a lot of our candidates, even after they're licensed and working with an office, understand that we're not just handing out listings, that it takes a lot of time to build your book of business and your database. And that's not always a fit for everyone. We're not all entrepreneurs, and it takes sometimes trial and error to figure that out. And so I use the example with students that the gym, right? So we all know how to lose weight. It's a very simple math, calories in, calories out. Some of us even have keys to a gym. But if you look around, how many of us right now are at our highest level or personal best for fitness, right? How many of us will be bodybuilders? And there's a rule of 80-20 in real estate. 20% of the agents make 80% of the income. And that's because they treat their craft with discipline, and it's the same kind of aspect. And so some candidates will be better for that area of our business than others. And then finally, it's really making sure that you choose the right company. So who you decide to license with initially is usually the make or break of where you'll be in 6 months to a year. And I use another example. Jim Collins writes the Business 101 book, Good to Great, chapter 1, line 1. He says, make sure you're on the right bus, right? And if you think of your career and your company as the bus that's going to move you, the vehicle that's going to move you through your career, you need to look around and make sure the company you're choosing is the right bus, right? And it's going the right direction. And then second, look around that bus and make sure you're with the right people, right?
Yes.
So when you're interviewing with offices, it's not just about that sign or that brand. It's also about your management and your support staff and also your peers, right? There's some symbiotic or synergy that grows with really successful people. So you want to make sure you're aligning with the agents that you aspire to be.
So when you talk about choosing a company, so for Windermere, what do you guys look for in when you're hiring a real estate? What characteristics and how are you making sure that those people are fitting within what the model is with Windermere and that they're going to be ultimately successful? Yeah,
we try and take a really holistic and unique approach to our selection process. Windermere inherently is very selective in who they hire, but we think that is important to our success as a brand, right? So we not only want full-time career professionals, but we want to set really high standards for performance, not just in production, but also in how you engage with your office community as well as the local community. So we're looking for people that are wanting to make this not just a job, right, but a craft, and are continually working to be the best in their career that they can be, whether it's their first year or their 20th year.
Okay. What about generations? What are you seeing as far as different generations that are coming into the real estate arena?
Well, for the last 5 to 10 years, generations has been a hot topic in real estate. Thinking of the onslaught of new buyers and sellers that we have that are in that Gen X, Gen Y, millennial space, they see their expectations are different when buying or selling a home. So we're trying to help our agents adjust their strategies and customer service to those customers' needs. And I think as a recruiter, we can do the same thing when thinking about who we hire. The average age of a realtor right now is 53. And we obviously have, even within our own company, a bulk of agents that soon will be retiring and exiting the industry. So I think that when you're looking at hiring millennials, it's important to understand a few factors of what they're looking for.
Yes.
First would be millennials are inherently entrepreneurs naturally. They've grown up in the information era, the startup era, so they're willing to take risks that other generations might not have been as prone to. They want flexibility. They want to do it on their time. They want to work remotely. They want casual Friday every day, right?
Yes.
And the tech industry has done a really good job of meeting those hires in that space. But I think as real estate companies, we can do the same thing. And real estate marries with that really easily, right? Time flexibility, income potential, entrepreneurship. And then finally, we've seen that millennials care a lot about having impact, right? They want their voices to be heard, and not in 10 to 20 years after they've climbed a corporate ladder. They believe in flat organizations. So they want to have impact in the organization from the start. And so there's no better place to do that than in real estate. On day one, you are the CEO, the marketing, the HR, all of it in one. So it opens up doors to really take ownership of your career.
So if you're listening right now and you're just graduating from college, a lot of college graduates have challenges in getting into the workforce and finding that position, and real estate might be a good opportunity for them. What would you say on that, Jonna?
Well, when you think about real estate, traditionally, I call it a transitional career. It's not something that you do as your first career out of college. It's usually your second, third, or fourth. And so I attend dozens, if not 100 college career fairs in the last decade, and I spend most of my time shedding light on what the profession means and how that ties into your degree path. Because when you're in college, there's not a lot of paths that include classes about real estate, right?
Of course.
But there's a lot, if you're worried about sitting in some cubicle when you graduate and having to climb that corporate ladder for the next 10 to 20 years, there might be a way that real estate can allow you more opportunities to, again, take ownership and apply your degree in different areas. And I also explained that real estate is not just to get your license, sell some houses, and that's it forever.
Yeah.
There's really a whole career path that can stem off of getting your license. Maybe you go into mortgage or marketing, management, ownership. And if you're really concerned about having impact, I think it took me several years to understand that our role not only has a really important impact in our customers' lives, but our industry as a whole has a severe impact on the local as well as the national economy. So that can be pretty powerful as well.
So the biggest advice before I take us to commercial and what you would have for a listener that's thinking about getting into real estate, what would be the biggest advice on the first thing for them to do?
Well, in simplicity, if I only had 3 seconds, I would say do the work. I think there's a lot of great companies that we have the tools, the systems, and the support, but we're not going to make you do it. And so it's up to you. But if you really focus on accountability and taking that risk, the reward is pretty huge.
Set yourself up for success. Make sure you're a right fit for the industry. Make sure you understand what it's going to take to be successful, and look at the excitement about being an entrepreneur, because that's definitely what it is for real estate. So thank you so much. Coming up next on the Money Hour, when choosing a real estate agent to represent you, do you want to work with average agent, or would you prefer to work with the best? Continue conversation from our panel of experts from Windermere Services right here on 1150 AM KKNW.
I don't believe it. My savings are gone. They're gone.
You're kidding.
Nope, they're gone. They're gone.
Okay, all right. Think about it. Where did you have them last?
I remember I was home, then I took them, and then I spent them on that vacation to Aruba. Then I bought this miniature suit of armor I saw in the in-flight magazine.
And that's the last you saw of your savings?
Yes.
This is so weird.
I know, right?
Weird? Not really. Not saving now means no money later. You'd be surprised how quickly a little money from every paycheck can really add up. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ideas and easy ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
The armor is cool, though. Oops. I think I broke its gauntlet.
You broke my favorite part.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
This is the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Well, welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here on 1150 AM, KKNW, the Saturday, December 19th show. It's a great day to talk about money. That's why I'm here with you and what the show is all about, how to make money, save money, and build a better quality of life for you and your family. If you're hearing my show at a different time, you are listening to a rebroadcast. You can talk with my guests that I have in studio or myself by calling the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. And in studio right now, we just talked with mainly Jonna Hood, Managing Director of Recruiting and Pre-Licensing with Windermere Real Estate. We're going to have a conversation with Michael Fanning. He is the Senior VP of Services with Windermere Real Estate. And also on our panel today is York Baur, CEO of Moxi Works with Windermere Real Estate. When choosing a real estate agent to represent you, you want to choose someone that is the best in the industry, not just to settle for somebody that's average. And Jonna mentioned to you the statistics is 20% of the real estate agents are selling 80% of the homes and working with 80% of the buyers out there. So you want to make sure that you're picking the best of the best. Michael, excited to have a conversation with you on this topic. And what are some of the biggest challenges that you see in careers in real estate?
Well, I'd have to say, and the National Association of Realtor touts this number, and it's a study that they say that 73% of the real estate agents make their primary source of income from something other than real estate.
Yeah, that's scary.
And that would be like me having, say, he's my doctor and he's also my barista. It just doesn't work. And so the question is, are you working with a professional, somebody who says that this is a career, this is what I do for a living, and are they looking out for your best interest and not for their best interest? So are they putting you first? That's the key. I mean, really, are they able to listen? Are they highly knowledgeable? And do they have a professional system and a process to take you through this biggest transaction you're going to have in your life?
And what about some of the benefits?
The benefits of working with a professional agent?
Yes.
Well, I would say one is that they are your customer or you're their customer for life. And what I mean by that is, are they having consistent communication with you in understanding this purchase you just made? This is typically, in most people's cases, one of their biggest financial investments in their portfolio. And it's amazing to me how many agents simply, after they close a transaction, don't follow up with a customer. We tout property reviews. You know, a good real estate agent every 6 months to a year is going to be meeting with you to give you a property review on the value of your home. They're going to have resources and services for when you have needs for your home in terms of repairs, all of that type of stuff. You know, they're really a single-stop real estate resource. And what we find, and what's really interesting, stats will say that on the seller side, you know, when they surveyed sellers after they closed a transaction, almost 84% said they'd use the agent again, when in reality only 25% did. Really?
That is a surprising statistic.
And on the buyer side, 88% said they'd use their agent again, and only 12 actually did.
Yeah.
And so what we're finding is the agents are really closing transactions, transactional minded, and not staying in contact with their customers in any way, shape, or form.
So what other things, Michael, should a consumer, if they're thinking of purchasing a home or selling a home, look for in the qualities of the agent that they're choosing to work with?
I think the first thing I would look at is if we look at any other professional service providers that we have, so I can use example my financial planner or going to my doctor, they're very structured in their systems and their processes.
Yes.
And so when you call them up on the phone, there's a system they take you through, there's a questionnaire they go through with you, and they really listen. And they listen for not just your whats, but your whys. Why are you wanting to do this? What's the most beneficial for you? And so that's number one. Number two is how knowledgeable are they? If you vet them out online and you go to their websites, does it appear that they have a really good understanding of the marketplace?
Yes.
Because real estate's very macro. You know, I always use an example whenever you're at a cocktail party and you run into real estate and say, what's the market like? They say, oh, it's great. That's not really an answer.
Yeah.
That's a statement. It could be more like, well, what market are you talking about specifically? Because it's macro or micro, not macro.
Yeah.
And so do they have a high level of knowledge of that, what's happening right now, of the dynamic markets that are going on, of what's happening in terms of where the market's trending? Or do they specialize in any neighborhood? What's their references? What do they look like online? Those types of things.
Sure.
And then last but not least, how well are they at listening to you to understand really what you want?
Yeah, and that is a really good point. When you're talking with someone that's going to help you through a process, especially something as important as purchasing a home, making sure that they do have those the skills to listen to find out what your needs are, because they're going to be so different from each of us. So with all of the websites out there for home search, and a consumer may be thinking, why does it really matter? What is my real estate agent doing? Which is one of the biggest mistakes that you can make. So can you talk on that topic?
Sure. I think many times a customer will say, and I had a friend of me say this to me, he said, well, the agent the agent didn't even find me the house. So really, what am I paying him to do?
Yes.
And I think that's really a misnomer. Agents aren't there to find you a house. And York will talk about this too. I mean, you can go online today and anybody can go find homes and search for homes. And that's just the first base, right? That's just getting the home. And then you've got to have somebody who negotiates on your behalf.
Yeah. And
so this is money talk. We're talking about people who are helping to increase their investments or save money or make money. A really good real estate agent can actually make you money and help you save money, and an agent that's not so great can actually cost you money. And so what are they doing for you above and beyond? You find your house, and then they take you through the negotiation process. They take you through the closing process. If I'm a seller, you think of all the pitfalls and the friction points in selling a home. I've got to sell it to the buyer.
Yes.
I've got to sell it to the bank. I've got to sell it to the appraiser. And so do I have an agent that's going to take me through each one of those steps all the way and then come out unscathed on the end and have a really positive experience?
Yep. I always say it's everything that happens after the contract comes together that really all that work comes in.
Absolutely. And so
and all the issues come up if you're not working with an expert.
Right. And so to think that we can automate that part of the process is just kind of nuts. I mean,
crazy.
Yeah, crazy. You really need somebody who knows what they're doing.
So what about for real estate agents, when you're coaching and helping, and where they can really step their game up? Because everybody needs improvement. Where is the most improvement needed with realtors?
I'd say it's three things. The first part of it is having a process. Jonna talked about the fact that when you come into this business, you are everything. You're the CEO,
yes.
You're the marketing director. And I think that if you aren't very organized and you don't have a system and a process, it can become very hectic very quickly. One of the things we say is the worst thing that can happen to a real estate agent is they get busy and they get successful. Because they don't, if they don't have a process, they stop doing those things that got them to that point of success. And so that's really one of the key things. The other one is really for the agent to be able to practice not on their customers, but practice daily their skills. Their skills at negotiating, their skills at understanding the market, their skills at going out and understanding their inventory. The documentation today is crazy in the amount of information that they have to know, the legality side of what they do. So a process, being a master at their skill set and being able to do that. And the other one is just being able to have work-life balance.
Yes.
We have a lot of agents that just burn out because they are so focused on the transaction and their business that they forget there's another part of their life, which is family, recreation, and dreams, and having those types of things as well. And so I think that those are really critical pieces. Those three things we want to make sure that the agents are doing on a consistent basis. And
like Jonna said earlier in the last segment, really a company, it's a huge part of it to make sure that you're surrounded around the right people, the right training, and the right processes to help you be successful in the industry. Let's talk a little bit, Michael, about technology. And we're going to talk a lot more about technology when we talk with York. But benefit to the real estate community, how is it helping them do their job?
I always ask the question to real estate agents, are you controlling your technology or is your technology controlling you?
Love it.
And I
always say, are you controlling your business or is your business controlling you? Same thing.
Well, I think it's kind of like the shiny flasher in the water and the fish. We kind of tend to, in this business, we tend to try to look for that magic bullet. And I think that one of the things York's going to talk about is, as opposed to having multiple different technology platforms, is there one that you can really sink your teeth into that's going to take you from point A to point B, kind of soup to nuts, and have a CRM platform, have a comparative market analysis platform, have the ability for your marketing and all of that stuff tied into one place. Because so many times we find agents they get confused, or they kind of get off track because they're trying to balance 3 or 4 different technology pieces as opposed to just having one solid technology piece. And I think that's critical. And I think if you can get your hands around having really good technology and having a system in place and being consistent with it, then it's going to help you be productive. But if you're trying to do a bunch of different things and you don't have a system, the busier you get, the more hectic it becomes. And then what happens, they just kind of walk away from it or abandon it.
Yes. So let's talk with all of you on your advice. I've got somebody listening right now, and they're looking at purchasing a home because it's a crazy market out there. We're not seeing any more inventory, not a lot anyways, to really help with the demand. So what should they be looking for or doing when they're looking for that best agent, that 20%?
Well, one of the things is millennials do this. They crowdsource. So ask around, get referrals. Yes. Referrals are huge. If somebody's willing to refer a real estate agent, it's because they know that agent's going to make them look good.
Yes.
Right. So ask around. What has been your experience with the agent? Who have you worked with in the past that just was phenomenal service? That's one way. The other way is to go look at websites. Go Google them. Go look them up and see how are they representing themselves. What can you find out about them? And then the other one is to make sure that you're looking at a reputable company.
Yes. And what about a question? Questions that they should ask. York, when somebody's sitting down with a real estate agent having questions prepared, what would be one of those questions to be able to determine whether they're an industry leader or not?
Well, excuse me. I think that there's too much focus on the data, and we'll talk about this more when we get to the technology topic. Any agent is going to have access to data, and most consumers have a lot of access to data. So it's not about that. It's more about the qualitative things. So have them storytell, have them explain how they worked with a difficult client or something that's similar to the scenario that you envision yourself in, or how do they do a tough negotiation. Bottom line is I think you have to trust your gut. This person, as Jonna was mentioning earlier, these people are coaches more than anything.
Yes.
And so if you find someone that it looks great on paper but just doesn't feel right to you, it's just not going to work for you through the process.
Yeah. What about numbers and providing like stats and things as far as what they're doing in multiple offer scenarios? Is that something that's helpful for a consumer to be able to ask their agent?
Sure, but what we've seen is that good agents are oftentimes able to win for their client in ways that don't really have anything to do with the data. It's about relationship building, even with the seller's agent and the seller themselves in some cases, that allows their client then to be the one that gets chosen in a multiple offer scenario. So it's not always about the data.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I've talked a lot too about in the industry, and really whether you're at Windermere, you're at John L. Scott or Remax or Keller Williams, that getting to know your peers in all the different companies and really getting known as having a great reputation, because there is always an agent on the other side of that transaction. And so it's important in your integrity and how you interact with your peers in your company or outside of your company. John, I want to ask you, because we're talking in the first segment about people that are thinking about getting into real estate as a career. And with Michael, we're really talking about finding that best agent. Now, we know these new agents that come in, there's going to be a percentage of them that are going to be those best agents, but they're new and they haven't, how do you help the new agents in being able to secure relationships with buyers when they don't have that experience under their belt?
Well, it's a couple parts. One, I think, is you have the opportunity to build your best practices, right? You are the business owner. So rather than getting in and dabbling and learning by trial and error, spend some time thinking about who is the best agent to you, right? What, for you as a customer, what service do you want? And as an agent, how are you going to provide that at every level, right? So really kind of setting the scene before you even get into the industry. And then also remembering that this is a really personal business. And I think sometimes the best agents are the ones that really understand the psychology behind what they're doing and try to preempt the feelings and the process that these customers are going through. And that's where the real value comes in. You can't get that on all the Zillows and the online real estate world. Where we really provide value is in that partnership and being able to forecast emotionally what they're going to be going through and responding to that.
Makes total sense. Michael?
Well, and I would also say that every transaction is unique. This isn't a cookie cutter business. And so every one of our customers has a different need.
Yes.
And they have different expectations, different motivation, different ways of cooperating, different ways of communicating. And the agent that can really understand that, the psychology that Jonna was talking about, that really truly listens and figures out with each one of their individual customers, how can I best serve them? What do they best need? In some cases, I could be a seller that could have crazy expectations. And is that agent willing to be honest with you? Says, I know that's what you need, but right now, this is where the market is. And so what do we need to do to move forward? As opposed to saying, okay, let's try that and see what happens. Because are you tied to the transaction and the outcome of the transaction, or are you tied to the outcome of having a satisfied customer, no matter what the outcome is, that they walk away saying, you took care of my best interest?
Yeah, and that is so important, Michael. To say that you want to work with an agent that is strong and really is going to communicate exactly what has to happen. You don't want to make things warm and fuzzy and not be upfront with what needs to happen in order to make it successful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So great advice from you guys. Thank you. And if you're listening, coming up next on the Money Hour, we're going to stay right here with our panel conversation. But next, we're going to talk about real estate technology trends, what's happening, and how does it affect you? More from Windermere Services panels after the short break right here on 1150 AM KKNW.
Dave, what are you doing?
Just sending a gift to Dave 2037.
Who?
Me in the future. I save a little money from every paycheck for Dave 2037 so he can buy anti-gravity boots or a hologram Doberman. What are you getting Steve 2037?
Steve 2037 will be just fine.
Well, okay, but don't expect to borrow my anti-gravity boots.
Save something for the future. Put away a few bucks. Feel like $1,000,000. For free ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
This is the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here at 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, December 19th show. I am here to help you build a strong financial blueprint, 1 week and one show at a time. If you're hearing the show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast, but you can call into the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com to discuss anything with the guests that I have in panel, or if there's any conversations or topics you'd like me to bring into studio, please let me know. And we're back here with our panel. We're going to shift over and talk about real estate trends. I'm here with Jonna Hood, Managing Director of Recruiting and Pre-Licensing with Windermere Real Estate, Michael Fanning, Senior VP of Services with Windermere Real Estate, and York Baur, CEO of Moxi Works with Windermere Real Estate. So it is a Windermere Real Estate panel today, and it's been a great show so far. York, this is going to be a conversation mainly with you as you oversee and manage the technology side, which is really important in any industry, very much so, and no different in real estate. So how does modern real estate technology benefit consumers that are looking to buy a home right now?
So first off, it's worth pointing out that technology has really dramatically changed, and there's a lot of discussion and focus of it, particularly here in Seattle. I mean, we, for whatever set of reasons, we become the epicenter not only of technology generally, but specifically real estate technology with Zillow and Redfin and all these names that I think most of us now know. And I think the benefit there is it has really caused agents, good agents, to have to elevate their game and really expose themselves for what their true value is. And the value is not in the data. So the technology has made the data available to everybody. Consumers can go on Zillow or whatever, Windermere.com, Redfin, wherever they go, and they see all the stuff. But what they, I think most at least, figure out very quickly is they need an interpreter. They need a guide. They need a coach to help them figure out what it is. I've always thought of it as there's a 3-level hierarchy. There's the data itself. There's information, which is stuff like what you see in these sites about trends and, aggregation of data. But then the most important thing is now, okay, what do I actually do? What is the decision? What is the action that comes from that information? And that's the piece people need help with. The analogy you've heard us use before here in this session is a doctor, right? You can go to WebMD and read all kinds of stuff. You can take your own blood pressure. You can take your own temperature. You can stand on your own scale. But you still need to go see the doctor to really figure out what you should do.
And in this technology time that we're in, what about data overload? I mean,
big time.
Too much information. Just you said, really being able to bring it together and narrow it down. And all of you have talked about the stories, and a story and pulling things together is really that emotional connection, as each of you have mentioned. So, what about the technology and side as far as what it's providing for sellers?
Yeah, I think it's been a huge boon for a seller, again, with a good agent. I'm always going to add that caveat in there, because left to their own devices, they're going to struggle. But I think what it's done is a couple things. One is the advice that an agent can give to that seller, and in specific, getting them on the same page quickly. Because the sellers now have access to this information, they come to the conversation with a frame of reference. They aren't starting from nothing like, hey, well, I don't even know what my house is worth. They have some idea. And so it shortens that discussion at the beginning quite a bit, and it allows a good agent to get the seller off of that topic and onto the mechanics of, what does it mean to you to be selling, and what are your time constraints, and some of these other things that are more the soft factors around it. The second thing I think it does is give, again, a good agent a lot more options for how they're going to expose that listing, that property on behalf of that seller. Before, it might have been, well, we have this ad in the paper, kind of a thing. Whereas today, and I'll use Windermere as the example, we broadly expose that seller's property, not only in this market, but in Windermere's case, the footprint is over 10 different states and 6,000 agents. So if you own a property here, there might be a buyer, somewhere in California that's looking to move, or even through other relationships. We have exposure, for example, into the Chinese market, where here in Seattle is a huge investment market. So a good agent is not only going to be able to give the exposure in the sort of checkbox ways, like, we'll post it on Zillow for you, but in more thoughtful ways, and using their fellow agent network as a way to get a broader and better exposure for that seller. And a lot of that is enabled now through the technology. It just wasn't possible, even 5 years ago.
Yeah. And on the data provided for the seller, we still see that, and Michael talked about this, and really a good agent is setting the expectations of the reality of what it is. The data is there, but sometimes sellers, they don't pay attention to the data. What they feel their home is worth is totally not what the data is saying. So what do you guys comment on that in the importance of a realtor and being able to have that conversation with the seller in reality?
Yeah, and I think, the data is often an important part of that conversation, but it's not just the numbers. It's also the storytelling and how an agent is able to paint a picture for a seller. Because, sellers going through this for the first time, it's a highly emotionally charged thing, because it's their house, and maybe their financial situation is heavily tied to this transaction. So having tools that allow them to present that information, the agent to present the seller with that information in ways that are easy to digest. We've at Windermere and at Moxi Works, we have a product called Touch CMA, for example, which is a tool that allows an agent to take this complex set of information and boil it down in some very simple, very powerful ways that they can not only show that seller right there, but this is an important thing. The data stays live as that presentation lives on, because guess what? When the agent leaves, particularly if I'm a younger seller, for example, I'm going to want to talk to my parents. If I'm an older seller, maybe I want to get some opinion from my financial advisor, whatever. So these kinds of tools allow that storytelling to live on beyond just a paper-based conversation. How many times have you agent walks in with a stack of paper? Well, it's out of date the second they walk in the door, and you can't communicate it to anyone else. So the technology, like what we have with Windermere there, it helps perpetrate that.
Jonna?
I was just going to say, you mentioned earlier the 3 levels of data, and then aggregate information, and then the 3rd level of how we use it. I think agents in today's world have an opportunity to really customize that data for that customer and that house. And so people used to ask, when should I list my house? And we all have that seasonal answer, right? Spring. But now we can actually prove it based on that house and that neighborhood on data from last month, And so I think if agents get really smart about taking that information and using it in a really creative way that's personalized to their customer, I think that's where the value is, because you can't do that online by yourself.
Yes, Michael?
Well, I'd also say, taking it a step further and stepping away from technology for a second, but just so they've got a great tool. Then the other piece comes is the training, and I talked about practice.
Yes.
And so when you think about, if you're going to be new in this business, specifically millennials coming in, What's the culture of the company you're joining, right? Is it collaborative? We have agents that have been with our company for over 40 years. They've gone through many cycles of real estate. They've been in that multiple offer situation. They've been in that homes not being worth very much and seeing depreciation and seeing appreciation, right? And they're able to coach those new agents and say, if you're going to be going into this, use the tools that we're creating, but here's the negotiation skill. Here's the knowledge you need to have, not to make a decision for your customer, but to give your customer enough information so they can make a sound, balanced brain decision.
That's what I always say with the numbers, too. It's not about choosing a program, but it's about giving them the information so they can come to the conclusion for the best financial decision for them. So you're with all the technology, what else is the realtor bringing to the party?
Well, a good realtor, again, is going to not only bring the information, all the stuff we've already talked about, but the soft factors that you just heard Mike talk about and that we focus on in the early training. See, the thing I think that is forgotten about the transition for agents, for most of whom real estate is a second career, is you have to look back at the context of where they came from. So if you're the 53-year-old prototypical female agent that's in the market today, they came into that career probably from a corporate context where they had a lot of training, a lot of support, a lot of systems out of older style companies. That's not true of younger agents. So I think the smart young agent that comes into a well-developed brokerage like Windermere is going to get the soft factors training to go with the tools and be able to demonstrate competence with the tools. That's the other thing. Millennials want to see people that are technology competent, but that's exhausted pretty quickly. That's a checkbox. Okay, they get the technology. Now, can they negotiate? Can they advise me? Do they have some financial acumen? All these other things that you want to then see as the customer. The technology hasn't changed the human behavior. I guess that's the point.
Makes sense. So what about with the overwhelming technology? How is the consumers digesting and understanding all of this data? I mean, obviously the realtor is there to help with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you used the term data overload, I think, earlier. And I think that's, even for the most sophisticated, you tend to have two types of people, I find. There are those that glaze over instantly when there's any discussion of any numbers. And obviously the agent's critical there. But I think even for those that understand the information well, and I put myself in this category, I'm a data geek, but I don't have the experience in what the data is about. And so I think even for that person, it's important that the agent, take over with the interpretation of the data. Also goes back to something I said earlier, finding the right match. I'll use an example. I have a CFO friend. Finding him the right agent came down to someone that spoke his language as a CFO. It was an agent that had some background that could relate to a CFO. It really comes down to that much more so than the raw information itself.
So for a real estate agent, whether we're talking about somebody that's looking at buying or somebody that's looking at selling, what should be the expectation of their representation using technology?
So if your realtor shows up and throughout the discussion there's never any technology, I would be concerned because it's probably to some degree a reflection of their ability then to use the systems that they inherently will need to use to help promote your property, to find you properties, et cetera. So, you should have an expectation to varying degrees, but you should have an expectation that this person is comfortable enough with the technology that they're going to show you a tool occasionally. They're going to send you something, an email occasionally. And while there are some great agents, I'm sure that are totally uncomfortable with the technology, I think the bar is going up over time to where pretty much everybody's got to have some level of acumen. So I would expect that as a consumer.
So since we're talking with an amazing company right here in our local market, all of you represent, what does Windermere have to offer in technology that is different than the other brokerages out there?
A few things, I would say. First, I want to touch on something that Michael talked about earlier. Again, especially for a younger agent or a new agent, meaning somebody coming into the business, they not only have to be their own CEO and their own marketing director, as was mentioned earlier, they have to be their own technologist in many cases. So what Windermere provides is an entire suite of products, all of which work together that allow you to have all the pieces you need to do your business and do it well. That's the first thing. The second thing is having stuff that's easy to use. These people are not geeked out people like me, right? These are business people, salespeople that are just trying to do their job. So the technology needs to help them in their relationships, not be about the technology.
Yeah.
And so many products are built by engineers for engineers, as I like to say, as opposed to for ease of use. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is support. It's not just about the gear. We have a whole support team based here in Seattle that answers questions, over 30,000 questions in a year's time from agents with a 98% satisfaction rating. That's the kind of stuff that matters, because it's when you get stuck, that's when you need to have an organization behind you to help you through that. So to me, that's what's important.
Got to wrap it up, Jonna, really quickly.
I was just going to add that I think Windermere's also taking a unique approach to a lot of their training and their technology is not about lead generation, right? And that's one way you can build your business as an agent. But their focus is more on relationships and long-term partnerships with customers.
Well, that's why you have agents that have been there for so many years.
Absolutely. And that's why we have Moxi Works, which is a system that really gives them that way to manage their referral network and their pipeline long-term.
Awesome. Jonna, York, Michael, thank you so much, you guys, for coming into studio and having a panel conversation on some really important things. If you're thinking about being a real estate agent, how do you work with the best agents out there and the technology and pulling it all together? So at Windermere, education, training, high level of technology, and you give back to your community, which I think is just beautiful. So thank you so much, you guys, for being here.
Thanks for having us.
This is your host and mortgage edge expert signing off for the day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I will be here same time, same place next week, right here on 1150 AM at KKNW.
The preceding program is paid for by Absolute Mortgage, a division of Finance of America Mortgage LLC, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS 1071, AZBK 0910184. Tina Mitchell, MLO 145420, is a licensed loan originator with Absolute Mortgage. Visit AbsoluteLoans.com or call 888-90-HOMES for cost information.